Good afternoon. I hope you all had enough to eat. This delicious food from Cater Me Cafe was another treat, and we thank Jackie. Now she left. Jackie for making sure that everything was served properly and everybody got enough. And I wanted to do an applause for her, so if we see her come back before the end of the day, we'll give her a big thank you, okay? Now, I think we're all really lucky, and I think I was in the nursery on Sunday with the babies, so I listened to Chris's sermon on Tuesday afternoon, and I keep coming back to one phrase that joy is to be shared. And it's just like I can't not think about that anymore. It's just so perfect. And it's also, sadness is also better shared because we need each other. But the joy just really hit me because I do prefer to be happy and not sad. So I wanted to say that it is a joy today that Scott Sandstrom is going to be our speaker. Scott and Libby joined the church here in 1996 and have been good members with the rest of us for quite a while. So I looked him up on Facebook and wanted to find out some things about Scott. And I'm not going to tell you all those because Scott is going to fill you in. But one thing it said is that we will today learn from our Director of Information Technology about the intersection of information security, modern technology, and faith at second. And I thought of having Scott speak to us when all of this technology kind of took over, the back pews and, extra rooms. Oh, excuse me. That was that pumpkin cake. And it just, when we had to start listening to the sermons at home, you can turn on your TV. And Scott has made it possible that we can be home and not miss any news. I'm going to stop and take care of this cold, and I would like for you to help welcome, thanks, Scott, to the podium.
Thank you very much. All right. All good technology people bring analog backups for when your technology doesn't work. So thank you very much for inviting me to speak with you today. I have some information to share with you. My hope is that this will be a conversation. This isn't me teaching you. So ask questions. Some of the things I'm going to talk about, you hear in the news. Some of it's scary. Some of it makes you wonder what's going on. So ask me questions. If I don't know, I promise you I'll tell you I don't know, and we'll figure it out together. So a little bit about me. I have been working with technology for, longer than I even want to care to admit. When I was a freshman in high school in 1980, so some of you can do the math, figure out. That is when IBM first released the personal computer. And I was fortunate enough that our high school got one. And I was hooked. So I was the absolute geek. I couldn't play sports because I have a hand-eye coordination issue. So watching me play golf is hysterical. Baseball, I swing. I cannot see where the ball is. So sports didn't work out for Scott. So I ended up in the Army ROTC program at my high school. And as part of that, we were given an IBM personal computer. And I thought, well, this is kind of interesting. I can get into this. So I started working with the computer back then. And when I graduated high school, I went to Indiana State and pursued a marketing degree. And you're thinking, why marketing? Because my dad owned a company that was a sales organization. And so, being the good son, I'm going to follow in my dad's footsteps and go get my marketing degree and take over the company. But I was absolutely miserable. And one day he looked at me and he said, I would much rather have a son than an employee. So you need to do what your heart says you need to do. I went to work for a company back then. Some of you may remember this name, a company called Computerland. And Computerland was a retail store that sold personal computers and printers and all this fun stuff. This is probably in the mid-'80s, something like that. And I went to work there selling and training on networked computer systems. And what I quickly discovered is while I was successful at sales, I did not like it. I loved the training part. I loved being able to sit down with people and help them figure out what issues they have and how to help solve them. That kind of kick-started my career as in what I call backroom IT. Technically, it's called infrastructure engineering. So I started way back then with this. And alongside of that was my faith journey was starting to kick off about this time. Libby and I met as freshmen when we were 14, both of us in the Army ROTC program. And fun fact, we did that because if you were in the ROTC program, you didn't have to take gym class. Okay? Remember, I told you I am not an athlete, right? So I'm thinking, I don't have to take gym. How hard could this be? It's the Army. How hard could this be? So Libby and I grew up together through that, and we ended up getting married in 1986. And as my career grew and her career grew, we quickly discovered that church needed to be a main piece of our marriage and our life together. And I was a typical guy in his 20s. I'm like, I'm not going to church. But Libby says I have to go, so I'll go. Libby's got that. I definitely moved up. In between 1988 and 89, we lost 2 children to miscarriages, and that really rocked my world. And I was really mad at God. And in the fall of 1989, in October, I was in San Francisco. I was working for North American Van Lines at this point, and I was part of a 3-person team traveling the country, and we were putting in networked computer systems that was linked to the home office in Fort Wayne, and we were putting in something called, ready, barcode tracking for freight. This was before UPS and FedEx did it, and this system tracked packages from their high-value stuff from IBM and Hewlett-Packard. And we were in San Francisco putting in a terminal out there. And when I called home that night, because cell phones didn't exist, Libby told me that our Lamaze class got changed, and it's no longer on Tuesdays, it's now on Mondays. So I was planning to come home on Tuesday, October 17th of 1989. And instead, I changed my flight, and I came home on October 16th, 1989. On October 17th, 1989, an earthquake hit San Francisco and devastated that city. And one of the things that happened is the Bay Bridge collapsed. At the time of that collapse, I was supposed to be driving across that bridge to get to the airport. Okay, I got goosebumps thinking about it again. Had I not changed my flight, I would have been a pancake. And so I got thinking about that. And one of the things in my life, I believe one of the greatest gifts God gives us is the ability of hindsight. The ability to look back and see things from a different lens, a different perspective. And what I see as I look back are all these miracles that God's put in my life throughout my life. And I really believe that miracles happen every day, folks. You just have to look for them. Sometimes it's real easy. Sometimes it's impossible. So what I found is that when I was really mad at God, God did not leave me. So I started, thinking through that. Our son was born in January of 1990 and decided, okay, it's time to stop traveling. Because at that time I was gone for 2 weeks, home for 3, gone for 2. And while that was fun, it was not fun as a father. So I went to work for a life insurance company and was in an office and building solutions for insurance companies. And about the time Eric turned 3, Libby and I were involved at First Presbyterian Church in Fort Wayne. This will surprise nobody. Libby was running the nursery, and I was teaching 3-year-olds because our son was so out of control with ADD. The only way they'd let him in the class is if I went with him. What they didn't know is he got it from me. So that was an exciting thing. So that's how I started getting involved with service in the church. We moved here in January of '96, moved to Indianapolis, and quickly found this church. Well, we were told about this church. We actually we attended a church in Lawrence, Faith Presbyterian Church, I think it is, on 82nd Street. And at the end of that service, we met a guy named Glenn Bell. And Glenn said, "Oh, you're new." "How did you know?" "Yes, we are. We are new." He said, "Where'd you come from?" "First Presbyterian Church in Fort Wayne." And he goes, "Okay, you will not be happy in this church. You need to go to Second Presbyterian Church." And he took a bulletin and drew a map for me how to find Second Presbyterian Church. And I thought, okay. No, that was probably a bad move from a fundraising standpoint. So we get in our van and we're going across 82nd Street. What he didn't tell me is that, did you know 82nd becomes 86th? And there's a river? But on the other side of the river, the road continues? Yeah, so it took us 45 minutes to get to here, and we walked in at about the end of the sermon, just enough that I heard Bill Enright. And something clicked, and I knew this is where I was supposed to be. So fast forward to the late 90s, Libby started working here with Dr. Robin Chaddock and the great Betty Salwack. And the three of them rebuilt children's ministry. And Libby did that. She was in charge of volunteers. Some of you were probably on her call list. And my role in this time is every Sunday I was voluntold of which class I was going to be teaching in that day. So whichever teacher didn't show up, that's where I went. And I did that, and I fell in love with this idea of service and what do I have that I can bring. And so I taught kids. I started teaching them when they were in the threes class, and I worked with them through in Sunday school all the way up through kindergarten when they go to the big floor upstairs. And I did that for a couple rotations, and I had some really amazing experiences. I learned more from those children than I've ever learned anything in my life. So plug for Sunday school. If you're not involved, do it. It's great. So during all this time, my career continued to build, continued to grow. When we came here, I was a systems engineer for a company called Bank One, and I helped them grow a couple divisions when they were purchased by first Chicago, I think, and then Chase. The direction that their IT people were going didn't sit well with me, so I left and ended up, as God would have it, became the technology director for Guerin Catholic High School, which is a diocesan Catholic high school from the Lafayette Diocese. And I started working with them when the ground hasn't even been broke yet. So we designed that platform from the ground up with every student having a laptop. And if you think you know something about technology, work in a school where you give teenagers laptop computers. That was an education and a half. I did not know you could break computers the way they were done. And parents too. I had one father drove over his son's backpack because he got off the bus from a football game and it was dark, and his son threw the backpack down on the ground, and dad drove over to pick him up and thump thump right over the bag. It didn't fare well. Yeah. So I did that for 12 years, 14 years. And just recently, before here, I was a engineer at a power company, and working on shoring up security and things like that for the power grid. So how did I get here? I've been here on a part-time basis for a decade, something like that, 10, 12 years. And I kept hearing God saying, you really need to check this place out. And I'm like, no, I have plans. And I have plans to, I'm going to be not there. And being God, he didn't give up. He just kept knocking. And about a year and a half ago, it occurred to me that what I was doing with my gifts is not advancing the work of the church. It was not making a difference. One of the things that tenet I have in my life is everything I do has to improve somebody else's life, and it has to be something that helps the church move forward, the church as a whole, not Second Presbyterian Church, but God's church. So I try to keep that lens with all the decisions I make. And I realized that the decisions I was making and my plans did not fulfill those buckets. And who knew? God actually knew what he was doing, and the plan that he had was better. So one day I was just having a conversation with Chris and Martha, and I was like, you really ought to think about coming here. I've never considered that on a full-time basis, but I really felt called for that. And there's a few things about IT here that needs a lot of help. So, The role that I have here is technology director, and I also play a role of the streaming producer. Of how you can sit at home and turn on your TV and worship with us. So I'll tell you a little bit about those. We'll talk about IT first. When I got here, the assessment that I came up with really quick was there were 3 tenets that I needed to focus on. Security, stability, and sustainability. And security being the most important. Information security right now is of the utmost security in any organization and in your life. It's something you have to be very much aware of personally. Unfortunately, the times we live in, we just have to know that. Cyber security, cyber attacks are happening constantly. Churches and nonprofits are actually one of the biggest targets right now of cyber attacks because most churches don't think about that, so they're an easy target. In May of 2023, there's a church, Relentless Church in South Carolina. They have 15,000 members, big church. They got attacked, and the hackers stole their accounting data, stole their human resource information, financial data from their members, bank accounts. They got all that data. And it happened because somebody clicked a link in an email. And just like that, it spread, and they didn't know it. So it sat there for months before anybody figured out that there was this group that was in their network freely grabbing information. So it's real. It happens. So some of the things I do here for that, there's a phrase you'll hear called patching or updating, right? Apply the updates on your iPhones when they come out. When Apple sends out an update and says, you need to put this on, you need to do it. Now, caveat with that, Libby is a type 1 diabetic and has an insulin pump that has telemetry that I get on my phone as well as her. That software says, don't ever update. Yeah, no. So if you have something like that and it says don't do updates, check with them and then update. Okay? So the only time you shouldn't do it is if it's going to cause you bodily harm. If it doesn't do that, always apply updates. Same thing on your personal computers. If something pops up and says there's updates from Microsoft or Apple, or apply them. They're very important. We have about 9 different servers here that we have automation to keep all those things up to date so that we don't have to deal with cybersecurity. I deal with it so our staff doesn't have to. What they have to put up with is this new guy coming in and saying, oh, your password policy's not strong enough. So the first thing I did was I changed the password policy. And your passwords need to be long. They don't have to be complicated, but they have to be long. There's actually an algorithm that I have that is a chart that shows how long your password is and how long it takes hackers to break it. And it is stunning. An 8-character password can be broke in 4 hours. Hours. As you increase that number, the length of time goes up exponentially. So here, I implemented the policy that has to be 14 characters. And when I told staff that, the looks I got, oh, I was probably the favorite new hire there was. But It doesn't have to be complicated. It could be a sentence. My dog's name is Fido. My space, dog space, name space. Those all add up. And it's more than 14 characters. So change your passwords. Make them long. Make them something you could think of. Don't use my birthday is. Don't use my son's name is. Don't use your social security number, please. Because how many of you have social media accounts? Facebook, whatever, Instagram. So anything you put on social media, you can assume hackers know and have. So if you put on there, oh, wow, my daughter, Catherine, just celebrated her birthday. Okay, so now a hacker knows who I am. They know I have a daughter. They know her birthday is this. They know her name is Catherine. They can get it. They get all that like that. So make your password so it doesn't contain the data they know. Let's see, what else do we do here? Auditing. I'm constantly looking through audit logs, looking for unusual activity on the network. That's just something that over years I've learned to spot. So I know what normal traffic looks like. I know what normal data traffic looks like on the network. If I see something that's not normal, then I chase that down and track that down to see what it is. I monitor alerts from, I'm a member of a panel from an organization called CISA, which is the Cyber Infrastructure Security Alliance or something along that line. It's a part of the Department of Homeland Security. And so I get updates and alerts from DHS and from the FBI on a daily basis. And since the war started in Gaza, the amount of information I am getting is frightening around the country. How many houses of worship, how many nonprofits are being threatened. And if there's a threat to a physical facility, guarantee you there's a threat on cyber. Promise you they're attacking on the cyber basis. So I read through all those alerts and keep up on that. And we're constantly looking at the security footprint to see what needs to happen. And so that takes a lot of energy, a lot of cycles. I've built a lot of automation around that I don't have to read the 500 emails I get every week from Microsoft and DHS. There's keywords that I have that'll tell me, pay attention to this one, pay attention to that one. And so far, it's working out well. We have a program here that there's a term you'll hear called phishing and spear phishing. Phishing is where you'll get an email that says, hey, click this link, see this picture. And you have no idea what it is. If you don't know who it's from, you don't know what it is, delete it. There's nothing you get an email that if it's important, somebody will reach out to you because you didn't respond. If you don't know what it is, you don't know who it's from, delete it. I preach this to my dad every week because I've had to clean his computer a few times. So do that. Spear phishing is targeted phishing, and we get that here a lot. We'll get an email that says, hey, Chris Henry is looking for this. So they use his name, so that's targeted, and they get that because our email addresses are public. So they know who Chris is, they know our email addresses, so they craft up these messages. And I'm telling you, some of them are really good. Our staff here is fantastic. We do, I don't even know if they know this. So if you staff members don't know this, surprise. Every month we send out fake messages that are designed as phishing or spear phishing. The last 4 months, the reports I've gotten back, we've had 0 people fall for it. So, yeah, good job, staff. We constantly look for that. So security, big one. Stability. What do we do with stability? Stability is all about keeping assets with current technology. That is anything from our server environment to our laptops, our printers, our tablets, AV components. We have to keep them current to be supported because it will break. It's not a will it break. It guarantee you something will break. And when it does and you have to reach out to the manufacturer, if you're not current, they're going to tell you, well, you put the latest software on first and then see if the problem goes away. So keeping current builds stability. Sustainability and integration, what that's about is when we deploy new technology here, one of the things that I look for is, does this platform, does this integrate with an overall plan? Or is this just a short-term thing? Great example. Some groups here use Sign Up Genius, so you can sign up for things. Some people have, you sign up on our website and it generates an email when you sign up. So when something is brought, says this is a problem we need to solve, when we look at the solutions, we have to make sure that it fits with the other stuff. Because what we don't want is islands and islands and islands and islands of different technologies, because it is not sustainable to support that. It can't happen. One of the things that we do with integration, my part is building the infrastructure, building the Legos that build it together. Our website is a great example of that. So there's a project happening right now to update the website. My piece of this is to make sure that the components that run the website, they're secure, they're adequate sized for performance, that it's accessible, and that's it. Our communications team is responsible for the content that plugs on top of that. So that's how that partnership works in an integration. Okay, what else? Let's talk about streaming. How many of you have seen our online services? Everybody, okay. Excuse me. That's fantastic. This is one of my pet projects that I absolutely love. This is the other hat I get to put on. Take off the IT hat, put on streaming hat. In early 2015, Jamie Kohler and I had a conversation with Dr. Galloway. And the conversation went something like, hey, we have some members that are in a long-term care facility that can't get here. And they like to know if they can see our service on their tablet. And we think we can do that. Are you opposed to it? And Lewis said, I'd never thought of that. Sure, go ahead, see what you can do with it. So, middle of 2015, Jamie and I pieced together some equipment and got some really basic camcorders and put on our first stream. And as long as Comcast cable didn't go down, and as long as the electricity didn't go out, you could sort of see and hear our service. And we had 20, 25 people every week that would watch. And in 2019, just before the pandemic, we decided that what does this take to go to the next level? Chris wanted to make sure that our reach was professional, that it was stable, that it was done the right way. So with some guidance from my friend Jerry and Bob Zicola, we engaged a company to help us retool our broadcasting environment. And remember I told you God has plans that just, they work right. We went live with this new system 1 month before the lockdown hit with the pandemic. We went from 50, 60 people a week to thousands overnight. And it has just grown since then. Last year, we reached over 32,000 people in 20 countries. No idea how that happened. We don't advertise it. It is miraculous to me that happens. So what happens behind the scenes so that you can turn on your television, turn on your Roku, turn on Facebook, and worship with us? So we did a couple things. One, when you're in the sanctuary and you see these cameras sitting on the floor out in the pews, that is intentional. The idea is if you stand up and you're looking at the pulpit, that's where I want this camera to be. I don't want it looking like it's from the sky. I want it so that when you are looking at it, you are engaged with whatever the speaker is, whatever is happening. You are part of it, as if you're sitting in the pew. So that's why they're out there. It takes 5 people every Sunday morning to deliver this to you. It takes many hours of planning throughout the week. It involves 4 departments. It involves communications, production, IT. It involves the pastoral staff. We've had to change processes and procedures to make sure that what happens, that we're prepared for it and we know about it. All of this we've been fine-tuning over the years, and now we have a very stable platform that delivers very good quality, and it's something that the 5 of us every Sunday, that is our mission. Remember, I told you I started with telling you that everything I do has to be through this lens of making a difference, and it has to be helping advance the church. This is definitely in that window. So that's what I've got for you. What questions do you have? I'm hoping that you have sparked some little things have gone and you thought, does anybody have anything? Yes, sir.
Recently, we've been at home watching the service, and I've noticed variation at the beginning of the service in terms of when the telecast begins. Mm-hmm. Sometimes John Allegar is playing. Other times he's already completed what he was performing, and the next group is on to their performance. Is there a particular time that you start the broadcast in terms of when John Allegar starts playing or when someone else is playing? How is that determined?
Absolutely. Great question. Yes. We start broadcasting at 9:50. So you'll see it at 9:52. We have a 2-minute buffer specifically built in case something happens that we can, I'm pretty confident that we can resolve whatever issues come up within a 2-minute window and it won't affect your environment. Think Netflix. When you watch a movie, things happen on the internet all the time. Between Netflix's server and your television, there's probably 20 to 30 different pieces of technology between there. and something's going to break at some point in that chain. So how you fix that for you, the viewer, is you build enough of a buffer that when that break happens, there's enough time to fix it before it affects you. So we start our broadcast at 9:50. On special days like Festival Sundays, Christmas Music Sunday, where we have extended music, we back that up. And we'll usually start about 30 minutes before the service happens. Every week, the prelude length is different. So when we schedule our broadcast time, we have to give it a definitive start time. So we start it at 9:50. If the prelude's 5 minutes, what you're going to see is a video that we run that shows the outside of the church. It shows some drone footage from inside. It's amazing stuff. And when John is ready to play, we cut to our opening graphic series, which tells you what the service title is, who is participating, who the worship leaders are. And then we go and you'll see John in his socks. Fun fact, we actually named that camera Sock Camera. We have one that says John and one that says socks. So the amount of time that happens and when that happens is purely dependent on how long the prelude is. Does that help?
Yes, because we have seen variation in when the broadcast starts, and it may be because of Comcast, there's a delay.
Yep. Yep. So at my station, I have monitors up that I monitor all of our platforms. So we broadcast to Facebook, to YouTube, to Roku channel, an Apple TV channel, and our website. So we broadcast to five different destinations. And so I have at my station, I have a monitor up with all 5 of those destinations. So I can see what's up. Every single one of them is at a different place. So the way it technically works is we send a stream up to a company called Resi. Used to be a company called Living as One. And they ingest our stream, and then they rebroadcast it to all these destinations. So the amount of time that each destination takes to get the video, process it in their technology, and present it to you is totally different and out of our hands. But I can tell you from watching my screen that every single one of those 5 is at a different place during the service. It is sometimes really annoying. Because when something starts and we're like, okay, we need to go to this shot, and I look at my monitor, it's like, wait, we're still singing the opening hymn. But in real time, we're doing the call to confession. So Dave and I have had to get used to living in real time, but our brains have to process 2 minutes behind. It's been really fun.
If people have a choice of one of those 5,
Yep.
which would you recommend?
Ooh. Website, for sure, our website. Facebook is, we've been really blessed with Facebook because it works. We are not normal. I belong to several groups that are church, IT, and broadcast groups, and every Sunday is, Facebook did this, Facebook did that. Did anybody else have this problem with Facebook? And I'm sitting there going, I'm not saying a word because it works for us. And I'm amazed by that. But the website is probably the most reliable. Yes, sir.
Scott, I assume the 32,000 is out.
Yes.
So it's output. The repeating watchers, can you get down, is that the seminal list? Is that the core, or is
The
that?
32,000 are unique. And get really geeky for you. Every device on the internet has a unique address.
Right.
That is 32,000 unique addresses. So, and that number is actually higher because I know for a fact, because I actually visited them in a place called Green Valley, Arizona, which is just south of Tucson. There is a retirement center in Green Valley, Arizona, and they have a Roku that they plugged into their community center. And every Sunday, 30 to 40 people come to the community center and worship with us. Our analytics see that as one because it's one device, but I know there's 30 people watching that one. So that 32,000 is on the low end of actuality, but that's the only one we can measure.
And we don't do any translations to this point, right?
That's correct, we do not.
Are we contemplating doing that?
We've kicked it around. The services to do that, I don't think are, I don't consider them quite up to speed yet to deliver the quality that we're trying to do. Now, with artificial intelligence booming on the horizon, I think it'll come eventually. But for right now, we are not doing that.
I have a specific question related to the men's group.
Okay?
We have, believe it or not, some men in our church who disagree with some of the things in the books we're reading in our various Bible groups.
No. Really?
I know everyone is shocked by this information, but as you digest that, we are trying, particularly Chris's sermon last Sunday was so excellent, so full of joy and hope and all the Becky right on, that we have a few of these curmudgeons we'd love to aim this sermon at. And what I'm really talking about is how can we, if we want to take part of one of our services or anything that we are putting into our video library, like for instance the Enneagram class or things like that, they're tools that people might want to learn about. Mm-hmm. How do we request and sit down with the right people to produce such a sendable, like in an email? You
Okay.
know?
I already sent him the YouTube link.
Yeah. Ron.
Okay.
Did it work?
It worked.
Okay.
He didn't watch it yet.
There we go.
Ron and I are in a prayer group that gets quite fiery.
Fiery is not a bad thing. Discussion is very good. All of our content from our services, we upload to YouTube, to our YouTube channel every week. So we broadcast live on YouTube every Sunday when we're during the service. And then we take the recording from that service, and our very talented Mr. Austin Hookfin takes that file, chops it up into segments, and posts it on a playlist. Every single component is an individual video that you can send directly that particular piece. So if you want them to hear just the sermon, you can do that. If there's a musical piece you want to send, you can send that. That's all done in the YouTube platform. Enneagram classes and things like that, that is all done during the planning phase of the event. So when, let's say we're going to do a class in Lent. So when we start talking about what we're going to do with that, one of the questions that we ask is this going to be recorded? Do we need to build this class out so all of them are available? Are we broadcasting it? So these are all questions that we ask because the answer to those depends on what resources we need to get. And there's only 2 of us full-time staff here that do this. It's just Dave and I. Everybody else is contract. So if we need to If we need to capture a class, that means we have to contract to get it captured, to get it edited, to get it produced, to get it uploaded, and that takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of resources to do. So every single event, we have to ask those questions to make that decision. So on the ones that we say, yeah, we want to capture and produce this, they will end up on a YouTube channel, and the website will have links on how you get to it. Does that help?
Yeah, thanks, Scott.
Okay. Yeah.
On the YouTube, oh, sorry.
Here you
On
go.
the YouTube.
Need that.
So would you just search Second Presbyterian Church on YouTube channel?
Yep.
And it'll bring up,
Find it. Yep.
Well,
Second
right.
Presbyterian Indianapolis. It's got our logo. You can also go to youtube.com/Second Press Indy, and it goes directly to our channel.
This was fabulous, Scott.
Well, good. I'm glad. Thank you. It's something I'm very passionate about, and I will happily talk with anybody that wants to know. One more question you had? Yes, sir.
This is very specific, but
Okay.
I have found the search engine on the website to find a member not very intuitive. I mean, you can make just one little error and so forth. As they're looking at the website, are they looking at a more robust member search engine?
Preach it. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Our member portal right now is powered. Yeah. This table back here will be carrying you out the door. The platform we have right now for our membership platform was actually originally put in here back in. It was in place when we got here in 1996. And it went through an upgrade in early 2000 and hasn't had any innovation since. So when you log on to your member portal, you're actually looking at technology that's 20 years old. The answer is yes. Next year, we will be rolling out a new platform that will have a new member portal. It will allow for much stronger engagement. It'll allow you to look for not only people, but events. Say, I'm really interested in this subject, and here's a list of all the events that might interest you on this. Would you like to sign up for some? And that'll be a completely different experience. That is coming in 2024. I do not know when yet, but we're starting it in January. There is a lot of work that has to go into this because there's literally 25 years of stale data that we need to weed through and clean up before we migrate it.
Scott,
Sir.
just as a closing comment, I hear your desire to wrap up. And I want to say, my name's Bob Hunter. I'm failing at retirement from Second Presbyterian, last 15 years. But I qualify as a frequent flyer on the worship experience. I won't call it viewing, the participation in worship by live stream nearly every Sunday. And I've also consulted with congregations over the last 35 years across the country, so I'm familiar with and follow friends' websites and broadcasts in small and large churches across the country. I've recently said to Chris, my pastor, I love worshiping at home, even when I'm in town, because I hear you better, I see you better, I am less distracted, and I have the freedom of solitary worship and a clear view of the community that I've been connected with for 35 years, and I thank you for the quality of that experience.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. All right. With that, thank you, Bob. That means a lot. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to reach out to me anytime. My contact info's on the website. Email, phone call, stop in. I'd love to talk if you haven't figured that out. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Scott. Thanks to, a great big thank you once again to Scott, to John Joachim, David Price, all members of Scott's team who are responsible for bringing us that wonderful worship experience and supporting all of our community outreach activities as Second through the implementation of outstanding technology. So thanks again. Thanks very much. And if I could close this in a brief prayer. And we call upon you, Heavenly Father. We give you thanks for a wonderful day of fellowship and friendship. We also thank you for the marvelous gifts and talents that you've bestowed upon members of our church like Scott Sandstrom, David Price, and John Joachim, who work tirelessly to share your message of love and peace across the world. Thank you. Amen.